About powers and exponents. So before we do that, let's review what we've learned about proportions, see if you really have a full understanding of it. Carol spends 18 hours in a 3-week period practicing her culinary skill. Hey, Top Chef is coming. How many hours does she practice in 5 weeks? So it's asking how many hours does she practice in 5 weeks? You are given the information of 18 hours in a 3-week period. So I know is about hours and weeks. Hours and week. So you're doing 18 hours in 3 weeks. And I would like to know how many hours does she practice in 5 weeks? Can 3 weeks be built up to 5 weeks? It cannot. So we are going to have to break this down to 6 hours is 1 week. So we broke it down to a unit rate. So every week she works 6 hours. She practices 6 hours. So we build it up by 5. We build it up by 5. So 30 hours for 5 weeks. So every week she works 6 hours. In 5 weeks she works 30 hours. So in her thing, Lori suggested that her allowance be changed. She wanted $3 the first week, with her allowance to be tripled each week. Her parents investigated the suggestion by completing the table. So in the first week, she gets $3. In the second week, they tripled that $3, $9. Wow. Then in the third week, she had $9. Then they tripled it again, so now it's $27. What happens in the fourth week? So originally it was $27. Now we triple that amount. 3 times 3 is 9. The other 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 times 9 is 81. So you triple 27, $81. Hey, this poor girl is getting rich. So let's copy what we did in the fourth week, and then we triple that amount again. So how much will she make this week? So we have 81 times 3 more is 243. Hey, in fifth week she's already making $243. In the sixth week, we tripled that amount. If you triple 243, what's 243 times 3, 9, 12, 729. And continue and continue. We're going to stop because do you think our parents, after completing the fifth week, do you think they're really going to continue this pattern? Will they agree with her suggestion? Of course not. No way. Because it's increasing at such a rapid rate. I know it's being tripled, but as you can tell, look at the dollar amount, $729. By the next one, but triple it, it'll be over $2,000. So of course they are not going to agree with this. Did you get tired? Did you get bored writing out all those times symbols? Is there a shorthand shortcut for multiplying the same number by itself several times? I mean, did you get tired writing all these threes over and over with multiplication time symbol? I did. There must be a shortcut. There is. It is called exponents. We are going to learn something called powers and exponents. Exponent is a shorthand. Exponent shows repeated multiplication. For example, when the fourth week, instead of writing 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, you could have written it in shorthand as 3 to the power of 4, 3 exponent 4, or 3 to the 4th power. There are two main vocabulary words for exponent. The base is what number you're using. We are using 3. 3 is the base. The itty bitty number is called the exponent. It's telling you how many times to write that number down because you're going to multiply. So it tells you how many times to use the number in a multiplication. So, and there are different ways to say these. If you had to say this, you can say the 4th power of 3. Actually, I never say it that way, but you can. 3 exponent 4. Sometimes I say it that way. But the main one I always say is 3 to the 4th power. So, for example, what happens if you had to write 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 is times 6. Is there a shorthand to write this using an exponent? So what is the base? You're using 6. How many times did you use this number in this multiplication? I used it 5 times. So it's 6 to the 5th power, 6 exponent 5. This is the 5th power of 6, which I never say. I always say 6 to the power of 5. However, whenever you have to the power of 2 or the power of 3, you can, it's called different way. It's called squared or cubed. If it's to the power of 2, it's squared. If it's to the power of 3, it's cubed. You might say, but why? I had one bro he told me this way. This is how he memorized it. When it is to the power of 2, it's two-dimensional. That's why it's a square. A square is two-dimensional. It's flat. So he told me when it's three-dimensional, it is a cube. It's something that you can move around. So I was like, oh, that is actually cool. Another way to say it, why is it called square and cube? If it's 3 square, because you are multiplying length by width, multiplying two sides. When something is three-dimensional, like this one, cube, you're multiplying length, width, and height. That's why it's called cubed. So you're multiplying not one, not twice, but 3 different sides, length, width, and height. That's why it's called cubed. So I do hear sometimes people say 3 exponent 2 or 3 exponent 3. Technically, they are not really wrong, but it is nice to hear squared and cubed, because I know in science class, you always hear squared and cubed. I think you do density and all kinds of stuff. When we do area, we always use the word squared. So let's complete this table. We know 3 power 1, or 3 exponent 1 is 3. 3 squared is, the base is 3, the exponent is 2. You are multiplying this, you're writing it down twice in a multiplication problem. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 cubed, 3 is the base, you're writing it, how many times are you writing it in this multiplication problem? 3 times, so that's 27. 3 power 4, or 3 exponent 4, or 3 to the 4th power, you're writing it 3, 4 different times in this multiplication problem, and then you multiply out, you get 81. What happens if you have to find a value of 3 to the power of 0, or 3 exponent 0? What do you think this is? What do you think is equal to? What do you think the value of it is? Is it 1? Is it 0? Is it indeterminate? I mean, there is no answer. It's just a trick question. What do you think it is? If you think it's 0, let's see if you're correct. If I say 3 to the power of 0 is 0, could this pattern happen? Because you're tripling it. If you triple 0, wouldn't that just stay at 0? So how could you ever get these numbers if you keep tripling? So it cannot be 0. If you think the answer is 1, let's see this. What's triple 1? 3. What's triple 3? 9. What's triple 27? 81. And so on and so on. So what's triple 9 is 27. What's triple 27 is 81. So that's why it's something you just have to know. To the power of 0, the value is always 1. So for example, so your math teacher, so if I tell you, what is your math teacher to the power of 0 or exponent 0? What is his value? He is number 1. Funny. So again, if the exponent is 0, the value will always be 1. Why? Because when you start this pattern, tripling, doubling, quadrupling, it has to start with 1 in order for all these patterns to continue. So let's practice a couple of things with exponents and powers. You generate an equivalent expression using an exponent. What is the base here? 7. How many times did you use this in this multiplication? Twice. So it's 3, 7 squared. What do you see here? 12. How many times did you use this written it as a multiplication? You wrote it 3 different times, so it's 12 cubed. What about the next one? 1.4. How many times do you write this in this multiplication problem? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1.4 to the power of 5. You can write it in parentheses if that's too messy for you. I can see it, but some people cannot see it. Next one. What is 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3 in using exponent? Because I don't want to write this repeated multiplication. It takes too long. So I'd rather write 1/3. And how many times did you use this in multiplication problem? 4. So to the power of 4. 1/3 to the power of 4. So, next one. Can you if you're given an exponent, can you write it out as a product? Writing the base over and over and over again as repeated multiplication. So 19, they would like you to write it once. 8 squared, they would like to write the number 8. They want you to write it 2 different times in this multiplication problem. 5 to the 4th power, they want you to write the number 5 4 times in the 4 times as a repeated multiplication. Now it's time to find its value. 19 is 19. 8 times 8 is 64. Be careful. I see a lot of kids do, oh, 8 times 8 is 16. No, we're multiplying. 8 times 8 is 64. What about next one? 5 times 5 is 25. What about this 5 times 5? 5 times 5 is also 25. 25 times 25 is 625. Or you could have done it this way. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. 125 times 5 is 625. Next one. What is 1.3 cubed? That means you're going to write it as repeated multiplication, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So, next one. What's 1/4 to the power of 3? That's writing 1/4, not once, as repeated multiplication 3 times. Next one. 3 squared. That's writing 3 as repeated multiplication twice. 6 squared is writing the base 6 twice. 3 squared is writing 3 as repeated multiplication twice. 5 squared is writing 5 as repeated multiplication twice. So let's go back and answer each question. 1.3 times 1.3 is what? 1.69. Then we need to multiply it by 1.3 again. 27, 18, 22, 5, 9, 6, 1, 7, 9, 11. It is, oh, where does the decimal point go? It's 3 places. Equals 2.197. Next one. What is the value of 1/4 times 1/4 times 1/4? 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Next one. What's 3 times 3? 9. What's 6 times 6? 36. It adds up to 45. What's 3 times 3? 9. Times, what's 5 times 5? 25. If you have 9 quarters, what is your value? Each quarter is 25 cents, so 9 quarters would be 225. So let's practice this through word problems. Tamika delivered 5 square newspaper last summer. Express this as a product of same factor. In other words, write it as repeated multiplication. So we're going to write the base 50 twice. Determine the value. What is 50 times 50? Well, let's use what I know. 5 times 5 is 25 hundredths. 2 zeros. So it's 2,500 newspapers. Next one. Of the world's smallest country, Vatican City has a population less than 10 cubed. How many people live in this country? So we're going to write this as repeated multiplication. So we have 10 times 10 times 10. What is this value? How many people live here? What's 10 times 10? 100. What's 100 times 10? 1,000. Or you could have done it this way. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. How many zeros do you see? 3 zeros, 1,000. So what we learned about is exponent. Exponent is just repeated multiplication. It is a shorthand instead of writing the multiplication over and over and over. So it's repeated multiplication. Sometimes they'll give you all these different products and ask you to write it shorthand. However, most of the time, I'll be honest, most of the time they'll give you the exponent such as this. They want to see if you can rewrite it as repeated multiplication and find its value. This is the study of powers and exponents.